18,000 less than what we're talking about. Um, I'm trying to, Kate might remember, I don't know that we've ever turned anybody down for the credit. It's kind of a sure thing as long as the house qualifies as substandard, which this does. Um, and so it's almost a sure thing that somebody could, if somebody wanted to come in and tear it down, they would get the $50,000 credit.
So that would help with the economics of them doing it as well.
It would help, but just trying to consider just the amount that it would take for someone to buy the house, and it seems like it may be not likely that a private seller would buy and demolish and.
And the reason we're at 120,000 is because when the owner approached us, we said our metrics really don't work over 120,000. This is about where the most we'd like to spend, and have those numbers still work out at least similarly to the credit program. If it's a $130,000 home, then it becomes much, much more difficult. And each situation is different. A couple of things that make it different here. Again, the neighborhood is a very nice neighborhood. I happen to think that a house, I don't remember any walkouts as Richfield rediscovered. Certainly not any in the last 10 years. I think that is going to be an attractive housing type for somebody. I think the neighborhood's attractive. I think this could be a $450,000 house. That's one factor that goes into this. Another is that the house itself has a severe foundation problem that both the owner and us and our inspector are concerned about. That really it's a pretty significant issue. So those are some of the factors that went into this. Certainly, there are some black and white ones that come down the pike. This is a little more gray, but staff is still feels good about this one, and that's why we're recommending it.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just thinking, Commissioner Freeze-Daniels was talking about a private buyer, somebody buying it on the cheap and rehabbing and selling. I don't think is what we want under any circumstances. And I'm just thinking, if I recall, one of the metrics when we were named the second year in a row the hottest market, they were talking about cost of construction, and I may be wrong in this, but I thought they had it something like $143, $144 a square foot for a new construction. Does that sound about right on a private residence? Well, and I'm just thinking about that. I'm thinking about taking it down. The foundation's trash, so you gotta. If you're gonna build a bigger house, your footprint's gonna expand. At $143, $144 a square foot, you go to 1,800, 2,000 square foot, you're at the 300 plus. And if no one's going to build it on spec. That's why having it in our pocket, being able to sell it at a good price where the developer or the builder is certain to be able to make a profit, and also to get it sold without holding it on spec, just from an economic standpoint, both for the city and for the builder. I think it makes sense, much more sense than testing the water with it on the market and having a bunch of people come through and try to do the numbers and see if it'll work, and it won't. So, I mean, that's just kind of from my perspective, the economics of it.
Mm-hmm. I still will be voting no for this. I don't think we can talk about natural occurring affordable housing and then buy these small affordable houses that we deem to be not workable and continue to tear them down. So that's just my standpoint.
Okay.
I can't support it.
The only thing, just remember, it is quality affordable housing, not run down that can't pass a point of sale inspection.
Can it not? I mean, that's the whole, to put the money into it.
If
So
there's major damage to the foundation, it's probably not safe. It's the substandard part that would swing me on this one. Because I think if it wasn't substandard, I would agree with you. But if the foundation is trashed out, at this point, I think it needs to be replaced. But
can we talk about the criteria about how we get to substandard and what that means? I know we've talked about it, but for the public?
yeah, it's a good question.
Well, it's a 2-piece test. It's structurally substandard, which is a mathematical test that they go through. The inspector goes through and notes all the code deficiencies. And if the code deficiencies exceed 15% of the value of the home, then that meets the structural substandard. But then the other piece is blighted, and that's more of a qualitative determination. The inspector we use has gone through all the certifications and training that they need to make that determination. And I suspect that the condition of the foundation in this case had a lot to do with him finding the house to be blighted. Yep, this one came in, the cost of bringing up to code would be 45% of its $170,000 value. Or, sorry.
So it's based on the cost of rebuilding the house as it is, so the same size house, rebuilding it. In this case, the total replacement value would be about 100,000, and the code deficiencies were about 40,000 of that.
So for $40,000, someone, in the mathematical terms, could bring it up to code. Am I understanding that right?
To build it as is, to like replace it as is. But so typically, to qualify, it has to be 15%, and this one was 45. So it went beyond meeting the criteria.
And, I think this is a really good conversation to have. We as a staff have this conversation every time as well. My mantra is that one of the things we're tasked to do are the things that the community wants, but that the private market can't or won't do. And, we try to think through this process as well. And this might be a case where we wondered if the private market could do it.
Yeah, we don't know.
All right, Mr. Devich.
One last comment on this. With respect to naturally occurring affordable housing, I would say that this community has a lot of homes that are naturally affordable housing. But I think what has been the lifeblood of what we've done in this community to make our neighborhoods strong is that we've gone through and found what we thought were the most substandard of the homes that we have and tried to replace those with probably the best home on the block. And that's been a successful program here for 25 years. And I think that's what has made the neighborhoods as strong as they are. And I think that's something that this city needs to keep on doing and finding those and keep on replacing them. Now, I don't know what we've done over the course of time, probably 125, 130 homes over the course of the program. But I remember personally driving through some of the neighborhoods where we picked off some of those first homes and did this and saw the way it changed the neighborhood and saw the way that it created reinvestment back in those neighborhoods. And you can easily show it by empirical data of pinpoints of building permits that go around it and how it revitalizes neighborhoods. So, there's sometimes that government needs to do something to make things happen that the private sector simply won't do because the profit motive isn't as strong as the needs that we have as a community to have a program like this. That's just my philosophical take on it.
All right, are there any other comments, or are we ready to vote?
Just one comment just to say that I think it is a good conversation, and each one of these that come up, we should maybe have this level of conversation. And so, thanks to Commissioner Rees-Daniels for leading it. At least for me, I think what we really want in Richfield is a diversity of our housing stock, and this seems like an opportunity to diversify the housing stock. And each situation is created differently. I think that the balance of information makes this a smart move for the city, so I'll be supporting it.
All right, the motion is on the table. All in favor of approving the resolution authorizing the purchase of 7324 Girard Avenue through the Richfield Rediscovered program, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
All right, the resolution has been approved. Moving on to item number 4, we have consideration of the approval of resolutions approving an amended and restated contract for private development and a right of entry agreement with Inland Development Partners for Cedar Point South redevelopment area. Mr. Devich.
Again, thank you, Chair, Supple, members of the HRA. This, of course, is another part of the long-awaited development that we're working on in the Cedar Point South redevelopment area, and I'm going to ask John to do the report.
Thank you. So the HRA on August 29th approved a contract for private development with Inland Development Partners for the Cedar Point South development area. The HRA further approved revisions to that contract on October 16th. Since that time, a number of additional issues or points needing further contractual clarification have emerged. The HRA staff has worked with our legal counsel, as well as the developer and their legal counsel, to modify the existing contract. Among the changes being contemplated are reducing the sales price of the HRA-owned land to $982,850,000. This reduction is a reflection of the extraordinary costs of construction in the airport noise mitigation area, including $407,000 for the construction or the installation of central air conditioning in the 3 buildings being rehabilitated. $195,500 for additional costs to upgrade windows and glass doors to meet the city's airport noise mitigation construction standards. That $195,000 was arrived at by looking at the new buildings that are being constructed, what the industry standards are for windows, and then the price difference to meet our standards. I would note, and it's in the financial portion of the report, in the end, a reduction of the purchase price doesn't have a huge effect on the HRA, given that MAC's interpretation of the grant or agreement, which provided the original funding for the property acquisition, results in all proceeds needing to either be repaid to the MAC or used on other projects that they deem to be airport related. So again, it's a little bit of a philosophical question rather than a practical one. As a result of the amended sales price and deductions for the land the developer is deeding back to the city, the surplus cash note for the repayment of the balance of the purchase price is being reduced from $1,411,000 and change to $682,850. The developer's obligation to make a cash payment of $300,000 at the time of closing remains in place. This next point, I think we have figured out, but we're going to keep it in here. Due to the ongoing discussions between the MAC staff and attorney, the appraiser for the land, and city staff related to the structure of the land value, the proposed contract amendment provides the executive director with the authority to alter the land value and or the surplus cash note by up to $250,000. Really what this is all about, we were arguing with the $195,000 in window costs I was talking to you about. We've been arguing with the MAC over whether we can simply deduct that or whether we need to have our appraiser reappraise the land to reflect that, and that changes kind of what category of funding that fits into. The overall amount of money wouldn't change. The addition of language stating, and here this is incorrect, the language really states that the developer and all the parties, the developer, the MAC, and the city have agreed to, I'm trying to find this, agreed to an outcome on the language of the abrogation agreement and the deed, but not the actual wording. So there's still some wordsmithing that's going on with the wording of those documents. And we're hoping that you would give us the authority to continue to work on that wording. Extending the date by which the developer must close on the purchase of the HRA land to no later than August 1st, 2018. Just a couple of other points. This is just housekeeping more than anything. we need to amend the legal description from what you've seen in the staff report, and we need to amend the address of one of the developers, Kraus Anderson, because they've moved sites. So I think what we'd be asking you to do then is do the recommended motion with some language that gives the executive director the authority to work on some of the finite wording, as long as it doesn't change the spirit and intent of what's before you tonight. So with that, I would stand for any questions you might have. Steve Schwanke, representing Inland Development Partners, is here as well.
All right, do we have any questions?
I would just suggest that what you just read to us, number one, is clear as mud. And number two, it's interesting language when those are termed as contractual clarifications. I find them a lot to do with money, not a whole lot of clarification going on. But with that being said, I think the operative word, the operative words are that at the end, it has no financial impact on the HRA. And from my perspective, we've been working with the developer for a long time to get this process moving forward. And I think that in terms of really being excited about progress moving forward, we need this one project to get started and get going, and the others are going to kickstart in right after it. So I think, like I said, the fact that we're moving some money around, still negotiating with MAC, and that's been a roadblock for a long time. So if they're on board with this, and at the end of the day, it doesn't cost the HRA any money, to me, it has to move forward, and I think not just for the developer and for the east side of Richfield, but for the entire community.
And maybe the most concise thing I can say right now is that HRA staff and the developer are on the same page. The MAC, we're making progress, and we could come back to you in May with this and hopefully have worked out all those finer points with the MAC. We're worried that that will hold up the deal. So we'd like just a little leeway to continue, like I said, some of this wordsmithing with the MAC.
Well, and I'm for that too, and it sounds like that you're close to getting the HUD financing, which is going to really move it forward. So I don't want anything we do to stand as an impediment or create additional clarification. So I think we move forward here. You get with HUD, get the money, and let's get this thing going.
Can I ask a question? It doesn't necessarily impact this decision, but this was part of the grant money we got from MAC. Are there other properties that down the road the same thing will probably be happening to? Does the MAC money apply to a larger area, or is this the sum total of where it is?
This is the finality of it.
Okay.
There was some 8 or 10 years ago that maybe MAC would like to have had a second bite at that apple, but that has already happened.
Okay, so this is the last time we'll be
Yes.
dealing with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I can just add, Chair, it's been a very complicated process dealing with it because, originally Congressman Sabo wanted to help Richfield out with the impact of the airport, got us $10 million of federal money. But that money couldn't come directly from the federal government to the city of Richfield. It had to pass through the Metropolitan Airports Commission. So they took that $10 million and then used another $10 million to give us. But, the agreement was written back when we got that $10 million, and I think everybody believed they had a complete understanding of what the document meant. And all the people who were really instrumental in putting the agreement together aren't around anymore. And then you start looking at the agreement and what does it exactly say, and what are the obligations, and so it's been a tough process to work through. And I want to thank the new executive director at the airport, Brian Ricks. He was very helpful in making sure that we could work on this and get it going as quickly as we could. But even so, it's a very complicated. And I can understand the airport, the MAC, looking after their interests of their $10 million, and of course, the city of Richfield, knowing we need to get the redevelopment going on that end, and And that $10 million was really given to us by the federal government through Sable to do what we're doing right now. So
I would just say we're working on a letter of understanding with the MAC that is going to tell us how we can use the proceeds. And we hope to be able to report back to you next month what those are. And we hope that you'll be happy with the way that we can use the proceeds. It was a very limited list of kinds of things. We think we're doing the best we can to represent the city's interests.
All right, does someone wish to make a motion or ask further questions?
One motion or two?
Two, because the right of entry agreement is a separate.
So, well, at this time, I would move to adopt a resolution approving an amended and restated contract for private development with Inland Development Partners, excuse me, for the Cedar Point South redevelopment area.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded, and can I clarify, you're allowing for the wordsmithing to take place?
Wordsmithing to the extent necessary to complete the process.
Okay, just so we have that on the record. Are there any questions or discussion? All right, hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, we've passed the motion.
I would further move then to adopt a resolution approving a right of entry agreement with Inland Development Partners for the Cedar Point South redevelopment area.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or discussion on that part? All right, then we'll call the question. All in favor of adopting the resolution and passing the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, we've passed that one. Thank you. Okay, moving along to other business. We have consideration of the approval of a settlement of a Housing and Redevelopment Authority deferred loan at 6500 Woodlake Drive, Unit 405. Mr. Devich.
again, thank you, Chair Supple, members of the HRA. This deferred loan at Woodlake Drive is something I'm going to ask Kate Aitchison to present to the HRA because she's very familiar with it.
And this will be familiar to you too. So in February 2018, you approved a settlement for a deferred loan for property at 6500 Woodlake Drive, Unit 405. The homeowner had received a deferred loan and then was forced into a short sale situation because of her declining health. And we approved a settlement for $1,800. In early March, the buyer in that sale withdrew their offer. The unit, continued to be listed on the multiple listing service, and they've since accepted a cash offer from a buyer who intends to own or occupy the property. The HRA will receive at least $1,800 from this most recent offer, and the update I received today was that it would be closer to $2,500. But due to the nature of the short sale process, it's possible that this offer could fall through. And so by approving this item, the HRA will authorize staff to accept any short sale settlement offer that results in the HRA receiving at least $1,800.
I would just add, for future cases like this, I think we will be wording it more like this, so it doesn't, not so tied to a specific situation with a specific buyer.
All right. Does someone wish to make the motion?
Sure, I'll make the motion to approve the settlement of a Housing and Redevelopment Authority deferred loan at 6500 Woodlake Drive, Unit number 405, for at least $1,800.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or further discussion? All right, all in favor of approving the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, we've approved the motion. Moving on to HRA discussion items. Are there any items that anyone would like to bring up?
Just more general interest. There was a op-ed piece in the Star Tribune about a month ago. Peterson, I can't remember, I keep thinking Coyle, but it's not Peter Coyle, but he was the administrator of Lindquist and Venom and then worked with the Greater Minneapolis Housing Authority and was talking about the prospect of having the first ring suburbs in the city having smaller lots than the acreage you have when you get to second and third ring suburbs. And he talked about some planning devices and everything that may promote additional housing, creating the density, but not necessarily needing a 75 or 100-foot lot. And he talked about, once again, going back, I don't know if you all recall, 6, 7 years ago, there was an architect, a female professional architect that was pushing 1,800 square foot houses as representing more than enough house to live in with a family and children. And given the orientation now that the high density, you go to Uptown, you go to the North Loop, and a lot of those people, some will still like the city living, but a lot of them are going to want to move out to the first or second ring suburbs, probably not much further out than that. And what they want is a livable house, sustainable, 1,600 square feet with enough yard for a dog. And his proposition is that when you take a look at some of the dilapidated housing or some that you're going to remove, really seriously consider moving them down to a 40-foot lot, 40 by 120, with 1,500 square feet, giving them the yard they want, and you're going to get more people buying into it and preserving the land by making smaller lots and everything. But you may have to take a look at the square footage you need to cover it. But and I'm not making that recommendation, but I think we ought to start looking at all those ideas that some of the really, really articulate developers are talking about in terms of how do you we just got done having a nice long discussion on what do we do with the undergrade or the underground, the housing that's not appropriate and stuff. But I think that going forward, I think we ought to take a look at all those op-ed pieces that come out and just keep a catalog of them, take them a look every once in a while, and see if there isn't something that's going to really fit our circumstances and what we're looking for in terms of a community. And you can build those houses at the same time, and by definition are going to be affordable. Just because the lot is smaller, the house is smaller, and the construction costs are going to be done. So I think we can take a look at those type ideas and just kind of put them in our quiver and wait, because we're going to have opportunities maybe to employ some of those ideas in the future. And it's going to be nice to have those things to take a look at and be reminded what's possible and what may be available. So that's just a thought. I think I've been seeing a lot of people coming out, and the mantra is affordable housing. And everybody acknowledges we need it, but we're not getting a whole lot of good ideas on how to preserve it. We're talking about, and we have been focused way too much on the rental properties as opposed to the single-family homes. And we kind of made that switch. Maybe it was a false start when a developer came in and talked about affordable townhouses over on the east side. And we got excited about it. I'm not sure that's ever going to come to fruition, but those are the type of things we need to look at. And so I think we need to not limit our focus to affordable rental housing in any way or respect, because I think that defeats the purpose of really having affordable housing community-wide if we're just going to limit it to rental properties. So I just think that that's something that we should always keep our eyes open about and have discussions whenever they come up. But also, if you see an op-ed or you see something in any publication that talks about how to do that, bring them to staff's attention and put them on the table and let the professionals take a look at it, and then we can revisit it if, in fact, the situation arises. So that's just my suggestion.
Thank you. Other questions? I had one, but others can go first. Go ahead. I was curious, last month we approved the preliminary development agreement between the HRA and NHH companies for the Cedar Point housing redevelopment, and we had a series of benchmarks that were put in place. I was just wondering how we're coming on those benchmarks.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Supple. We none of the benchmarks have come due yet. They do come due at the end of this week, the first couple. We've been meeting with the developer on a regular basis, and I feel confident that by Friday we will have achieved the 2 benchmarks that are due this week. They're making significant progress. We're hoping to send a letter out to the neighborhood early next week, and we're hoping that there would be a neighborhood meeting soon thereafter to explain to, and really there are 2 audiences for the neighborhood meeting. There are the people that are have the potential for selling their home to the developer, and there are the people that have the potential for having the new development as their neighbor. And so we're really trying to craft different language for different audiences and think about how a neighborhood meeting could work for both audiences. But that's where we're at.
Right, thank you. Are there any other items for HRA discussion? All right, then we'll move along to the executive director's report.
Chair Supple, members of the HRA, I don't have an executive director's report per se. Just simply to say that with all the activity that we have going on in Richfield right now, we just put on a temporary building inspector that we needed because there's so many construction permits that we're dealing with that our existing staff, was not able to handle it. Wow, that's a first. We haven't done anything like that for a very, very long time. And I'm really excited about all of the things that are on the drawing board that I think are going to be coming forward, and the things that are going to be starting in construction this year. I just think that once this the forever winter goes away, you're going to see just a lot of activity in Richfield, and it's just very exciting.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Devich,
Go ahead.
are these commercial, residential, or some of both?
Some of both, probably more residential than commercial. With the garden center site, I don't know if people noticed in their Sun Current on Thursday, the developer put a full-page glossy insert in that. Really, the target for that was potential townhome buyers. That's how confident that they are that they're going to be moving forward quickly. Tonight we were here with the contract with Inland. I think they should be closing on their HUD mortgage sometime soon. They are going to get started on constructing Richfield Parkway again as soon as this winter ends. And we've been making significant progress on Cedar Point 2. We've got there is an open house this Thursday, came about very quickly, for the developer at 66 and between First and Stevens Avenue, Paul Lynch. He's going to be holding an open house here at City Hall Thursday from, I believe, 5:30 to 7. And the neighborhood has been alerted to that. And just the volume of developers calling up staff, calling up policymakers is very good. And the number of people just going out and doing work on their own homes is pretty significant as well.
Great.
Right, that's wonderful news to hear. All right, our next item are the claims and payrolls.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, claims and payrolls have been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving claims and payroll, please say aye.
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 All opposed? All right, we've completed all the business on our agenda, so the meeting stands adjourned. Thank you.